Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of One Take because life has no rehearsal. Today, we're talking to John. I used to pronounce it Cuddihy, but of course, it is Cuddihy, and it is one of those names that give us Latinos a very hard time pronouncing. But John is a very special case. John has seen the underbelly of the beast a lot. He worked for a few advertising agencies, meaning he saw the glossy part. He worked for media reps, meaning he saw the incredibly transactional business part, Katz specifically, I remember them, Katz Television. And then he worked for two of the best names ever in cable. And he was part of the birth of cable in Latin America. ESPN, which of course is probably the most successful cable company ever, and Sony Entertainment Television. So, John, welcome. It's a pleasure having you. So, let's start. By the time we get to be our age, we've had many decisive moments. But if you have to look back, what's the one moment that made the modern John Cuddihy today?
Well, first of all, let me start by pronouncing my name properly. It's John Cuddihy, and it's an Irish name, and it sounds an awful lot like Kennedy, except it has D's instead of N's. So Cuddihy, Cuddihy. And I know it's difficult, and I usually, when I worked in Latin America, I would call my clients, and when I spoke to an assistant, I would just say, just tell them John Kennedy's calling, and they would all know that. So that's how it worked. The most pivotal moment in my business career, I mean, there's been so many of them that it's hard to really narrow it down to one. But I guess it would be the transition. I was a media planner at William Esty, and our account at that time was Datsun as it was converting to become Nissan. And it was a huge amount of money. And in fact, William Esty, regardless of the fact of how much money they were going to make on this transition, they begged Nissan to say keep the Datsun name in the U.S., but they wanted to be a world brand, and so that's what they did. And unfortunately for them, their share dropped precipitously versus Toyota at that point. They were neck and neck with Toyota, and then it just fell down. However, the point and the reason I'm bringing this up is because as a media planner, I was the head person for all the magazines. And I knew, and my colleagues who knew me knew that I was going to be on the sales side eventually. And I had two opportunities simultaneously. One was I was interviewing with Hearst Publications for a position for Cosmo, which was a very prestigious, I guess it still is now, but it certainly was then. And also some crazy fantangled thing out in Columbus, Ohio, which was the Warner Amex. That was a Warner Brothers American Express joint venture cable systems, as I said, in Columbus, Ohio. And it was the first two-way interactive system in the world. So I don't know what I would have done had things reversed, but the offer was made to me to go to Columbus, Ohio, and I was at a tennis court, and it was the Sunday before I was going to drive to Columbus, and I bump to one of the head people at Hearst, and he said, "Congratulations, John. You know we're gonna be hiring you at Cosmo. You're the new AE for Cosmo." And I was like, "I'm taking the job, and I'm leaving tomorrow." So then I moved out of print, and I moved into not standard television. It wasn't local TV. It wasn't network TV. It was local cable television. And the idea for the first time that I could see in the manager's office, the general managers of the systems office, 30 TV stations going at one time was eye opening, and that really changed my life.
Yeah, I bet. People tend to forget how primitive cable was at the beginning,
It was
except except for a few exceptions like that. If you remember the box, which was like the predecessor of MTV,
right.
they really had advanced technology that just I think didn't have the firepower or the computer power to really make it happen as you could do it today. Today you have enough computing power to do it.
Well, Marcelo, I can't claim to be the first, but I was amongst one of the first to sell an interactive television spot on cable television. And, you know, all of this got worked out, obviously, by Amazon, but it took years to make that all happen. The, the problem was at that time that the addressability. We
Yes.
knew that somebody would press a button on their remote control and someone in that household, could have been a cat, just ordered a new microwave oven from the Lazarus, which is now Macy's department store. But we didn't know, if it was really legitimate and all the rest. So there were elements that were fantastic,
Yeah.
and elements that were premature to what we're seeing today. I think very, very soon. In fact, I believe that Walmart and Vizio are working on television where you can watch a show and buy an ad by a click of a button. So, for example, if you're watching something like this interview, and then they say, "Oh, I really like that blue and white striped shirt that Marcelo has on," you just click on it, and the next thing you know, it's in your house. That's coming. There's no question about that. It's coming. Now, how quickly and how many hurdles will they have to overcome that have not been overcome yet is a different story. But we
But
started it all in Columbus, and most of our people were engineers, and they came
yeah,
from public broadcasting stations at that time.
but it's getting there. It is just not getting there on broadcast television.
No,
Like the other day, I was reading the two most watched videos, signals, platforms, call them whatever you want. The two most watched things in the United States are YouTube and
yes, that's right.
Netflix. And YouTube, you can do interactive in 2 seconds.
Hmm.
There's there's nothing preventing, like, my favorite porn channel is Dog Demuro reviewing cars. I can't stay away from that channel. And let me tell you, every one of the videos is 30 minutes, so it's a commitment. Dog is amazing. He really is. He's built a brand on sound. He always comes in saying, "This is the new whatever, whatever, and today I'm going to show you the quirk and features, blah, blah, blah." There's nothing to stop you from saying, whenever Dog does this, you should be able to click on that car and either buy it, because now you can buy a Tesla in a shopping center. You can go to Dayland Mall, buy a Tesla.
Right.
Actually, you can go to Dayland Mall and buy a Rivian. So, it's up there. There's nothing to stop you there, or maybe some other stuff. For example, he's advertised Better Help or Better Health or something like that, the interactive health, mental health services. So the technology is there. It is just we are still thinking, or the nation is still thinking, television is, you know, that flat thing that is hanging there. But television today is also this laptop watching YouTube.
No,
So,
that's absolutely correct. And YouTube is the number one most watched quote unquote television system. Um, but one of the biggest challenges right now, and remember, I do teach a class at the University of Miami all about marketing and distribution of motion pictures, which is both
oh wow,
television and movies. So I've been teaching that for 13 years. And the challenge that we're having now is going to be the aggregation. And it almost feels like we're going full circle back to cable, so that if you pay the money, you can go on Amazon and you can watch Peacock, you can watch MGM, you can watch a whole bunch of things, and it's all aggregated for you by Amazon itself. So Amazon, in a sense, the technical term is MVPD. It's a multi-video programming distributor, and now they put a little V in the front of it, which means it's a digital. So the standard MVPDs are Comcast, Charter, Optimum, and on the other side, satellites like DirecTV and Dish.
hmm
Now, all of a sudden, those businesses look like they may be preempted by people on digital. And the two big ones right now are Amazon, which I just mentioned, and the other one, back to your good friends at YouTube TV.
yeah,
YouTube TV is without a question a MVPD. It just has a little V in the front of it because it's not coming to your home through wires, it's coming through digital.
Yep. It's really incredible that, for example, in my house, we have we have five TV sets. We're two people. We have five TV sets, right?
Yeah.
I watch YouTube all of the time, and my wife Netflix, and we hardly watch commercial television. Actually, it took me by surprise that ABC is no longer Channel 10 in Miami. I didn't know.
It's chart
I mean,
19. Yeah.
yeah, it's one of those things. It's now a point something. So it's interesting because it kind of leads me into the core of one take, which is you and I started, working when, I started when I was 20. You probably started at the same thing. I mean,
More or
we
less.
probably, yeah, we had no choices, right? Either that or starve.
Right.
So we worked. But by the time we get to be our age, we've seen half a century of change, which is amazing if you think about it, because it's very accelerated change. But there's always one or two changes that, absolutely catch you by surprise. You've worked in three different, completely different major industries. The ad agency,
All within the communication field.
right? But three levels, right? So you've worked with the ad agencies, you work with the media reps, which is now a thing of the past. Look at Publicitas, no longer exists.
Right.
Nobody needs them. And you work directly on the media. So choose a, okay, I'm going to put you on the spot. Choose a category and tell me the most incredible change you've seen that you would have never expected.
Well, the rapid demise of cable television, which is ongoing right now, and the cord cutting. I
Yeah.
didn't think that this was going to happen so fast. And it's funny because things have come full circle. As I just said earlier, these little v MVPDs are aggregators in the same way that Comcast is an aggregator. So I find that to be a huge change in the business. But some of the things that stay stable, and I teach young people, and some of them are so bright today, and they know all about the technology and all the rest. But what they need to understand is that every day you are selling, and you're selling yourself, and you're moving into these companies where some of them the 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 young people have their heads down like this, and this is what they're doing the whole day, and so they don't see a bigger picture. They just are very good at doing algorithms and doing coding and all those sorts of things. So I always suggest that my students, and I try to remember this for myself, remember that you're always in the selling environment, and that you need to interact with people and understand what the marketplace is demanding, because it's happening so fast.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's another aspect to it. I don't know. It used to be that the only people that needed, like courses all of the time and revalidating their licenses and whatever were like doctors and nurses, those kind of people.
Right.
Today, all of us have to have that mentality. You need to revalidate yourself. You need to, acquire new knowledge. I think that's one of the reasons YouTube is so successful. Apart from watching, Gangnam Style, which, by the way, by now has like 4 billion views or something like that, some
Yes.
outrageous amount of views. Yeah, it's amazing.
Well, I think and I stay very active and speak to people in Hollywood on a regular basis in order to be able to teach what I teach. And I'm not teaching the history of television. I'm teaching motion pictures, marketing and distribution today, what's
Yeah,
happening right now. And there's three elements to this which didn't exist. It didn't exist to a high level during the cable era. And I consider that I rode two waves simultaneously, pretty much. The era of cable and the era of international, because beyond being Sony's Latin American senior vice president of distribution, I also had responsibilities at ESPN in Europe, and then I was the senior vice president of international for the History Channel, which had me all over the world. So, and the 3 points that I want to make that are different than they were in the past is that all those in Hollywood made the big assumption that content is king. I know content. We can hire these other people, whatever,
Yeah.
the tech people and the marketing people to make sure we get subscribers. It is so complicated that that's why right now, although streaming will turn the corner and become profitable, and it's sort of kind of profitable now at Netflix, but all the other ones are dying. They're not going to die, but they're sinking in red ink. And the
Yep.
reason for it is that yes, content is so important, but so is subscriber acquisition costs. And
Yep.
they have increased dramatically, in part because Apple is very specific. It changed their algorithms and the way they do business. But if you decide that you like a series, you like the Yellowstone series on Paramount, that's great. But then afterwards, you cut that and you get rid of Paramount Plus after say a year. The chances are not that there'll be a 10 or 15% increase to get that new subscriber to make up for you. It may be a 100% increase or even higher. Yeah, so
Wow.
that is a big wow that nobody understood. So the marketing to get back that what they call churn, and everybody
Yes.
who leaves a streaming service was it was a discount compared to what the new future person is going to cost to bring in. And the next thing is the technology. You know, it was complicated to a degree, but every cable system had a monopoly in its own town or village or city, what have you. So everybody in this area is with Comcast. Everybody in New York has Cablevision,
Right.
and so that allowed them the money to tear up the streets and put the wires into the people's homes. Today, you don't have that. Instead, you have somebody who has five televisions in his house. He has a computer and he has a phone, or maybe he has two phones, or one phone is an Apple phone, the other one's a Samsung. That's all different different codes that are required in one house.
Yeah.
Multiply that by the world. Technology and the tech people are changing their algorithms and all the rest by the day, by the
Yeah.
day. And that was very shocking because what the Hollywood studio people thought was, I know about content. You know, I can make the best sitcom. I can make a new drama that's like Law and Order. Everybody's going to watch it. And tech, we don't have to worry about it because you didn't have to worry about how a TV show was satellite into people's homes, and certainly you didn't have to worry about it. You just delivered it to the cable system or you delivered it to the broadcaster, and you wiped your hands. And some middle level executive was kind of overseeing to make sure it was done properly. Today, those executives are more important than the content executives, and there's a real clash, and I don't mean a personal clash, but there's a mental clash going on, saying, "Oh my God, I didn't know what I got myself into.
Yeah.
Now I have to deal with subscribers. I have to figure out how to send them a monthly bill. I have to figure out how to market them on an individual basis as opposed to simply marketing to a third party distributor." So those things are so dramatic that that's the big change that I'm in the middle of watching and that I'm teaching about.
That's super interesting. So cost of acquisition, of course, I've handled because I handle the acquisition for DirecTV, so I'm very conscious of it. The whole idea of churn is a killer. I mean, look at the other one that is not direct Dish. Look at Dish. They had huge churn, and it really cost them a lot of money. So you mentioned that. You mentioned the technology, but you mentioned three things. What's the third? I am so curious.
Content,
Oh, okay, yeah.
subscriber acquisition, and technology.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Content
It's
is the
content's
other
still
thing.
important. People are not going to watch things they don't want to watch. It's got
Exactly.
to be entertaining. It's got to be attractive. But my only point, Marcelo, was that the content people felt it was a 99. Everything else was 1%. Well, no,
No, no, you're right.
far
You're
from
absolutely
that.
right. Well, yeah, I wrote a column ages ago called "The Death of Kiss," and right now we're moving away from Kiss. Keep it simple, stupid. We
Yes.
we live in a way more complex world. Thankfully, we have, I think, the technology to handle it. But you're very right. Content used to be king. Now you gotta watch everything. Your cost of subscribers, your churn, your technology, and the technology changes like all of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, all of the time. It's amazing. So
Almost
anyway,
on a
just
daily basis.
yeah, I don't know about that, but like,
And
yeah, it
in
does.
terms of what I mean by that, not not
Oh no, I
not
buy
a
it.
major change, but the change in the coding and how that signal is getting to your telephone
Yep.
changes because Apple just changed their code. You know,
Oh yeah.
10 seconds ago, and then the whole country's coding has to change, and Paramount and Disney and all the rest, they have to change because there's nothing worse. I mean, we as Americans, and it's pretty true around the world, we watched ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox, and we expected to turn the TV set on and switch the channels with a remote control, and that's it. We didn't expect any of this thing going around in circles, buffering, and we don't like that, and that can be very costly. If you're a service that has too much buffering, you're going to have a lot of churn.
Yep. I truly agree. So, in a couple of minutes that we have left, you've probably, I have, you've probably hired and fired, I don't know, dozens of people, maybe hundreds of people. But let's say you were advising a CEO who's, interviewing people for a senior position, and one of them is older versus everybody else who's, 30, 40, whatever. What do you tell that CEO about the value of older people, older executives?
Well, you know, the if you're going to hire an older person, you're only going to hire a good one. I mean, you don't know if you have a 22-year-old, which 22-year-old is going to work out better than the others. But you pretty much, through the resume and through by speaking to them, you have a pretty good sense of an older person and you know, what their character is. I always say to my students, when it's either an interview or to do a presentation, be prepared, be enthusiastic, and be an expert and be knowledgeable in the field.
Yep.
So I'm pretty sure that most people 50 plus know that instinctively. If you're going to go and interview with a group, you're going to go and figure out what that group does and what their business is. So that's what I recommend to companies is to find the person who's enthusiastic. He or she have earned the right. They know what they're talking about. I don't want to be hired to be a nuclear physicist. I mean, that's not much chance of that. But I've earned the right, in my case, in the television business, in your case, in the advertising business. So those are the things I would recommend. Earn
Great.
the right, be prepared, and be enthusiastic. If you're no longer enthusiastic and you're just doing it because you just don't have anything else to do, or you probably that's not the right person to hire.
I agree. Yeah, enthusiasm works.
Enthusiasm, you know, yeah.
Great. Well, John, it's been a real pleasure. We need to, continue talking about the other stuff for sure, but it's been a fantastic lesson on what really makes a difference for television. I'll be sure to highlight it. So, thank you very much. I
Well,
appreciate it.
thank you for reaching out to me. I enjoyed this very much, and it's good to catch up with you again, Marcelo.
Same here. Thank you.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.
Bye bye.